God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio protege. This is the Protege program. Thank you so much for joining me. Somewhat breaking news. It's been breaking for about 5 hours, but anyway, Trump signed an executive order to stop family separations at the border. Now, you could be thinking that we will finally be rid of the issue of talking about these illegal immigrants and their violation of U.S. sovereignty and the separation of families at the border because of the violation of U.S. sovereignty. But I'm unfortunately here to burst your bubble. This is not the end of the debate. It's not the end of the issue. It's not the end of the problem. The reason that it's not the end is quite simple, really. The Democrats don't want it to end, as we have discussed earlier. This is a very good problem for the United States to have for the Democrats. It means that people are continuing to pour across the border illegally. It means that an amnesty remains on the table for these individuals. You know, we've done how many amnesty bills? 4, 5, too many, really. But every time we do an amnesty bill, the Democrats get a whole bunch of new voters. We know this because Hispanics, which is the vast majority of these illegal immigrants, vote overwhelmingly in favor of Democrats. I think the number is 75 to 25%. So the Democrats obviously don't want this problem to end. Now, you could point to my characterization of the issue just now and say, well, you're being tribalistic. You just don't want these people to come into the country because you don't want the Democrats to get more voters. And I would say to you, no, if these people were all coming into the country legally, assimilating into United States culture and becoming genuine, bona fide Americans, I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled if these people would come into the country legally and participate in our economy legally and would be good, upstanding United States citizens. But they're not doing that. They're breaking the law. Lawbreakers in every rule of law country in the world, of which fewer and fewer remain, lawbreakers are punished for breaking the law. The law is, thou shalt not violate the United States border. And these people are violating the United States border. Therefore, they need to be punished. Now, let's talk about some of the details in this column. President Trump on Wednesday signed an executive order to allow children to stay with parents caught crossing the border illegally, moving to stop the family separations that have triggered a national outcry and political crisis for Republicans. Now, let's talk about why this is a political crisis for Republicans. It's a crisis for Republicans because the media didn't report on it when it began happening, and Republicans are now in control of the government. It's by slim margins, but they're in control. This issue came up during Obama's presidency. Why did it come up during Obama's presidency? Because there was a law passed, I believe it was in 1997, that dictated that children apprehended crossing the border illegally, unaccompanied by an adult, were not to be detained by ICE for more than, I've heard 30, but apparently it's 20 days. Maybe it's different for asylum seekers versus unaccompanied minors. But the law said that unaccompanied minors needed to be transferred from ICE custody into DHHS custody, Health and Human Services. At that point, it was still legal for children to be detained by ICE with their families if they were apprehended crossing the border accompanied by an adult. And then an activist judge in the Ninth Circus decided that this was not okay. And he said, no, all children apprehended crossing the border, whether they are accompanied or not, shall not be detained by ICE for more than 20 to 30 days. This means that you now have two options. You can either detain an entire family for less than 20 to 30 days and deport them in less than 20 to 30 days, or as the Trump administration has been doing, prosecuting these individuals, which takes much longer than 20 to 30 days. Or you can release the family into the United States, catch and release. That was the Obama policy. So there's 3 options, not 2 options. The third option is to detain the parents and release the children. Release the children into HHS custody, detain the parents, and prosecute them. Now, those are the options. And the Trump team has decided on the third option because he wants to vigorously enforce the border. And of course, Democrats are not okay with this. This is a Democrat-manufactured problem. Why is it a Democrat-manufactured problem? Because the policy of the left is open borders. They don't agree with the concept of borders. So these people are not guilty of law breaking in the eyes of the Democrats. But there are laws on the books that say they are. So they have to do something to mess with and finagle the laws to make those that would try to enforce the laws look bad. Now, we could get really caught up in the weeds, and we've talked about this before, so I'm gonna try to move on and not get too caught up. The measure would allow children to stay in detention with parents for an extended period of time. This comes as congressional Republicans scramble to draft legislation to address the same issue, but face challenges mustering the votes. Now, why is it incumbent upon Republicans to scramble to address this issue? Well, primarily it's because of I will credit the Democrats with this, a well-executed propaganda campaign to categorize this problem as an exclusively Republican problem. That puts Republicans on the defensive. We've talked about negotiations a little bit in recent days, and by laying this problem squarely upon the shoulders of the Republicans, it's on the Republicans and the Republicans exclusively to now deal with this problem. The Democrats have none of the weight on their shoulders. There is no pressure on them to do anything. They can refuse to address the problem that they think is a problem, and they're not going to catch flack for it. They are calling it a problem. They do not want to fix the problem, and they're not being held accountable. That would be like a police officer saying there's too many people speeding through my town, and then that police officer sitting on the highway watching people speed through his town, not writing tickets, and then complaining that it's City Hall's responsibility to change the law so that there are no more speeders in the town. Just as an analogy for you. In signing the measure, Trump said he wants to keep families together while also enforcing border security. He vowed his administration's zero-tolerance policy for illegal immigration would continue. Trump, previewing the measure earlier in the day during a meeting with lawmakers, said the move would be matched by legislation. He also said he's canceling the upcoming congressional picnic, adding, "It doesn't feel exactly right to me." Here they talk about the 1997 order and related decisions. That speaks to the court decision that said all minors apprehended crossing the border illegally shall not be detained by ICE for more than 20 days. This paragraph is another reason why we're not going to see the end of this issue. Sources told Fox News that the executive action by Trump could be seen to run afoul of the 1997 order and would likely draw a lawsuit. Now, if the 1997 order is simply an executive order, then there is no running afoul of the order, because what one president orders to be done, another president can order to be not done. Does that make sense? That's been a lot of the undoing of the Obama legacy. All of Obama's legacy from 2012 to 2016 was exclusively executive orders. What major legislation was passed from 2012 to 2016 that Obama can attribute to his legacy? There is nothing. there is nothing. There were spending bills out the wazoo, but there was no major legislation. There was a few other bits and pieces here and there, but no big things, nothing even coming close to Obamacare, nothing approaching the magnitude of the shovel-ready work projects bill that was passed. It was exclusively executive action, and that means that Trump can undo it all with his own versions of executive actions. Basically, Trump signs a bunch of executive actions that say, cancel executive action number da 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 da. So basically, Trump could issue an executive action that says, cancel 1997 order, and that would be the end of it. But if he's not addressing the 1997 order directly, there could be some issues. Undoubtedly, there's going to be a left-wing social justice legal team that's going to sue the Trump administration to try and get this move blocked, because this crisis is performing so well for Democrats. It's performing so well for Democrats, and I think they are looking forward to suing the president. And I think that based on a quote from Chuck Schumer that's in here somewhere. Let us see if I can find it. Senator Chuck Schumer, the Democrat leader from New York, is adamant that Trump can end the family separations on his own and that legislation is not needed. This is indicative of two things. Number one, that there is zero pressure on Democrats to address this issue whatsoever. Like I said, it has been laid exclusively on the shoulders of Republicans. All of the pressure is on them. There is none on the Democrats, even though they alone think that this is a problem. I promise you, any Republicans watching this video in Congress, the cabinet, or otherwise, no Republican voter is going to abandon you over this issue. We don't think it's an issue. The Democrats and the Democrats alone, who will not vote for you under any circumstances, they want this issue addressed. And they alone. And yet they don't want it addressed. They act like they want it addressed, and when it comes time to address it, they refuse. Chuck Schumer says that Trump can end the family separations on his own. He's suggesting that Trump do one of two things. Either go back to catch and release, like Obama was doing, that Trump is not going to do, or the other way that this could be interpreted is the way that it is a dare. I dare you to do this. I dare you to make an executive action that addresses this so that we can sue you for executive overreach. I would not be surprised if there would be impeachment talks. Like, this executive overreach is so abrasive and so in contrast to the law that this could be where we get impeachment. Now, let's address in breach of the law. The only way that this executive action is in breach of the law is if the 1997 order is not an executive order, but is in fact a legislative order. If it's a legislative order, then the president must enforce that order, at least in accordance with the tradition of the past 100 or so years. You know, if we were to go back to a pre-Civil War republic, and I don't mean that in terms of slavery, I mean that exclusively in the terms of the relationship of the branches of the government and the relationship of the government, the federal government to the state government. If we were to go back to a pre-Civil War federal government, Trump could say, I don't think that this policy is constitutional, therefore I'm not going to enforce it. He could say, I don't think it's constitutional to separate these families in this manner. I don't think it's constitutional to take these children from their families, separate them, remove them from ICE custody, and put them in HHS. I think it's unconstitutional because it means that these quote-unquote children are escaping punishment for the crime of violating U.S. borders. There's any number of things that could be done. The solution that is being pursued is clearly not going to be the end of the issue. It's not going to be the end of the issue, first and foremost, because Democrats don't want the issue to end. Democrats and their friends in the media. That's going to do it for this video. I hope it wasn't too doom and gloom for you. If you enjoyed, leave a like. If you want to see more content like it, hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Join me tomorrow for another report. Make sure that you're checking back here every weekday. Until then, good night and God bless.